All right, diving right in, folks. Welcome to our deep dive into, well, everything that's come out of this 2024 U.S. election.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Wild is an understatement, right? I mean, we've got Trump back for a second term, but it's so much more than just that headline, isn't it?
Right.
We're going to be looking at the election results themselves, obviously, but also what the experts are saying,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it all. Plus, we've even got some personal reactions from people, everyday folks, both here in the U.S. and even from some folks abroad.
It's fascinating to see those different perspectives, right?
Absolutely. So, buckle up, folks, because we're about to go deep.
Deep and deep.
So I guess, the big elephant in the room, if you'll pardon the pun,
Huh.
is that Trump pulled off another electoral college victory.
Yeah, it's almost like an echo of 2016, isn't it? Where the popular vote doesn't necessarily translate to winning the presidency.
And this time, he even got the same number of electoral votes, 306, just like back then.
It really underscores the power of those swing states.
Right. And he won all 7 of them this time around. It was Arizona that was the last one to be called, wasn't it? Keeping everyone on the edge of their seat.
Absolutely. And, when you consider that alongside the potential Republican takeover of Congress,
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
it paints a pretty clear picture of a uh, pretty significant rightward shift in American politics.
Okay, so let's break down this whole Congress situation because, to be honest, I'm still a bit confused about where things stand.
Sure. So as of right now, November 10th, the Senate is a done deal. Republicans have secured the majority there.
Okay.
But the House is still, well, let's just say it's still a bit of a nail biter. There are 10 races that are still undecided.
10. Wow, that's cutting it close.
It is. So the Republicans, they need 218 seats to control the House, and they're currently sitting at 215.
And the Democrats.
They got 210. So yeah, everyone's watching those last 10 races very, very closely.
It's like a political thriller, isn't it? Waiting to see how it all unfolds.
Exactly. And, the implications are huge. If the Republicans manage to secure those final seats, it gives them tremendous power to push through their agenda. I mean, think about it. Confirming Trump's cabinet appointments, appointing judges, passing legislation, it's a recipe for pretty sweeping change.
And I imagine one of the issues that'll be front and center is immigration, right?
Most definitely. It was a key part of Trump's campaign, and it seems to have resonated with certain segments of the population, especially Latino voters, which is interesting.
Yeah, that was something that really jumped out at me.
We're seeing a pretty notable shift in Latino voters towards Trump, particularly in Florida. The CNN exit polls, they show a pretty stark contrast compared to 2020.
So it's not just about liking Trump himself, it's about agreeing with his policies.
Right. I mean, it seems like his tough stance on border security, it's really hit home in places like the Rio Grande Valley down in Texas, communities that are directly impacted by immigration.
It makes you think about the complexity of the issue, right?
Yeah.
These are folks who are dealing with the realities of immigration every day. And Trump's approach, well, it clearly appeals to them, and with a potential Republican Congress, backing him up.
Right.
I, I can't help but wonder if those mass deportations that he talked about during the campaign
Mm-hmm.
could actually become a reality this time around.
Well, it's certainly a possibility, and the appointment of Tom Homan as the so-called border czar, that's not exactly a subtle move, is it? He's known for his hardline stance on immigration.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And, then you have Susie Wiles as his chief of staff now, and Elise Stefanik as the UN ambassador. It's starting to look like Mar-a-Lago is a pretty busy place right now. Lots of people vying for a position in Trump's second term.
Oh, absolutely. It's the place to be, it seems, if you want to be a part of this new administration.
It's like a political reality show down there. But, beyond all the politics and the maneuvering, I'm curious about the human element of all of this.
Mhm.
What are people saying? How are they reacting to Trump's win?
It's a mixed bag, to say the least. You've got those celebrating at Mar-a-Lago, obviously, people feeling a sense of relief, maybe even some hope that things will improve, especially economically. But then there are those who are, well, frankly, terrified. Some federal employees are worried about a potential purge, and a lot of women are expressing, I guess you could say, deep concern, even horror at the potential impact this could have on their reproductive rights.
And it's not just an American story either, is it?
Right.
This has global implications. A lot of people around the world are pretty apprehensive about what a Trump presidency means, for international relations. especially his stance on things like Ukraine and global cooperation.
Yeah, it's clear that this election has sent shockwaves far beyond U.S. borders.
So we've got these really strong reactions on both sides, but let's not forget about the election process itself. There were some concerns raised about voter challenges, weren't there? Particularly with overseas voters in Pennsylvania.
That's right. There have been a number of personal stories from U.S. citizens living abroad, specifically in London, who found their votes challenged, and some of those votes were ultimately either dropped or rejected outright.
That's disturbing.
It is. It raises some really important questions about, how easy it is to disenfranchise voters and what that means for the integrity of our elections.
So what exactly happened in Pennsylvania? What was it about their system that allowed these challenges to happen?
Well, Pennsylvania has a pretty unique legal framework. Anyone can challenge a voter's eligibility. All it takes is a $10 deposit.
$10.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And if the challenge is successful, or even if it's just withdrawn, you get your money back. And in this specific case, over 4,000 challenges were filed. And they were all concentrated in 11, I guess you could say, key voting districts.
4,000. That's a lot.
It is. And here's the really interesting part. Each of those challenges originated from a single person in each of those counties.
Wow. So it's like a coordinated effort.
It certainly seems that way. And while all of the challenges were eventually either withdrawn or dismissed, it doesn't erase the concerns that they raise. I mean, it exposes a vulnerability in the
All
system,
right.
a vulnerability that could potentially be exploited to manipulate election outcomes and cast doubt on their legitimacy.
It's a scary thought, isn't it?
Mhm.
And what's even more unsettling is that a lot of these challenges seem to have been based on technicalities rather than actual evidence of fraud. It makes you wonder if this is part of a larger trend of voter suppression. Is this eroding trust in the democratic process as a whole?
That's a very valid concern, and it's something that we as a society need to be paying very close attention to. Because if we lose faith in our elections, if we start to believe that the system is rigged, well, that's a very dangerous path to go down.
It is. It's the foundation of our democracy.
Exactly. And we need to do everything we can to protect it.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the reactions, we've talked about the potential consequences, but I think the big question on everyone's mind is, where do we go from here? Will Trump's second term be a continuation of his first? Or will we see something completely different? How will these election results and all the forces that shape them play out in the years to come?
Those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they? And unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that we're at a pivotal point in American history. The decisions that are made in the next 4 years, the actions that are taken, they're going to have a profound impact on this nation and on its place in the world. It's a time of great uncertainty, but also a time of great opportunity.
It feels like we're standing on the edge of the unknown, doesn't it?
It does. There's a mix of excitement and anxiety, hope and fear. And so much depends on what happens next.
And that's where you come in, dear listener. We've laid out the facts, we've explored the different perspectives, but now it's time for you to process it all, to form your own opinions. What do you think the next 4 years hold for America?
Will we see more of the same from Trump, or will his second term take a different shape? What are your hopes? What are your concerns? These aren't just abstract questions. They're about your future, the future of this country. And the factors that shape this election, they're not going away anytime soon.
We're talking about the shifting demographics, the economic anxieties, the deep cultural divides. These are issues that will continue to shape the American political landscape for years to come, and they demand our attention. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep engaging.
Because the future of America, in many ways, is in your hands.
You know, it's really interesting to think about how this election has, like, exposed these fault lines in America.
Oh, absolutely. It's like it's brought everything to the surface. And the reactions, they speak volumes, don't they?
They really do. I mean, you have some folks who are breathing this huge sigh of relief. You know, those who felt like the country was headed in the wrong direction. They're looking at Trump to bring back stability, maybe get the economy back on track.
Right. There's definitely a sense of hope there. Like maybe, just maybe, things will get better. But on the flip side, you've got this wave of anxiety washing over certain groups.
Yeah, you can almost feel the tension in the air, can't you?
Definitely. I mean, think about those federal employees, right?
Right.
They're bracing themselves for a potential shakeup, worried about their jobs, unsure about the direction their agencies will take. And then you have a lot of women who are, well, deeply concerned about what this means for their reproductive rights, especially given Trump's stance on those issues.
Their fears are understandable, aren't they?
Absolutely. And it's not just happening within our borders either. The whole world's watching. I mean, can you imagine what other world leaders are thinking right now?
I bet there are a lot of raised eyebrows out there.
Yeah. Trump's victory, it's sent ripples through the global landscape. There's a lot of uncertainty about what his foreign policy will look like this time around, especially when it comes to Ukraine, to global cooperation. His past actions and his rhetoric, they haven't exactly inspired confidence among America's allies.
Right. And, it's funny because it's all interconnected, isn't it?
Hmm.
These domestic issues like immigration and the economy, they have these global repercussions. Whatever happens here in the U.S., it has the potential to impact the whole world.
Absolutely. It's all part of the same puzzle. And that's something that's important to remember, when we're trying to understand what this election means, we can't just look at it through an American lens. We have to consider the global perspective too.
So we've talked about the immediate reactions, the anxieties, the hopes, the global impact. But what about the long game? What are the things that you're like really watching closely as we head into this second Trump term?
Well, the economy is a big one. I mean, that was his whole platform, wasn't it?
Right.
Economic prosperity, bringing back jobs. His supporters, they expect him to deliver on those promises. But the question is, how will he go about it this time? Will we see more of the same policies, or will he take a different approach? And how will his economic policies impact different groups of Americans?
Yeah, that's a huge question. The economy affects all of us. And then
Yeah.
there's this whole issue of social and cultural divisions. This election, it really brought them to the forefront, didn't it?
It did. I mean, the debates over immigration, race, identity, they were incredibly heated. And the question is, where do we go from here? Can we find a way to bridge these divides, to move forward as a nation? Or are we just going to see them deepen even further?
It's a daunting question. And honestly, I don't know the answer, but I think it's something that all of us need to be thinking about. You know, how do we create a future where everyone feels like they belong, where everyone has a voice?
And I think it starts with listening, you know, trying to understand where the other side is coming from, even if we don't agree with them. Finding common ground, working together to solve the problems that we face. It's not going to be easy.
It's not, but it's necessary. And it's what we're trying to do here on the deep dive, isn't it? We're not trying to tell you what to think, but rather to give you the information, to show you the different sides of the story, and then to let you make up your own mind.
Exactly. We want you to be informed, engaged citizens who can think critically about these issues, who can participate in the democratic process, because ultimately the future of America is in your hands.
Well said. And, as we move into this new era, it's important to remember that we all have a part to play in shaping that future. What kind of America do you want to see? And what are you willing to do to make it happen?
Those are questions we should all be asking ourselves. And I think that this election, it's a wake-up call for all of us.
It is.
Are we going to hit the snooze button and go back to sleep? Or are we going to get up and start building the future that we want?
I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get to work.
Me too. Let's do this.
So before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, there's one more thing that's been on my mind, and that's trust.
Oh, yeah.
This election, it's really shaken people's trust in the system, hasn't it?
It has. And it's not just the government, it's the media, it's institutions, it's even trust in each other. It's a slippery slope.
It is, because a democracy can't function without trust. So I'm curious, how do we rebuild that trust? Especially in a time when everything feels so divided and polarized.
That's a tough one. I don't have all the answers, but I think it starts with honesty. Being honest with ourselves, being honest with each other, acknowledging the problems, admitting the mistakes, and then committing to doing better.
And maybe it also means being willing to listen to those who see things differently than we do, even if we fundamentally disagree with them. It's about finding that common ground, that shared humanity, and working together.
Absolutely. And it's about holding our leaders accountable, regardless of their party affiliation. We need to demand transparency. We need to demand integrity. We need leaders who are committed to serving the public good, not just their own self-interests.
Well said. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's possible. Don't you?
I do.
So, as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. The future of America, it's not predetermined. It's being shaped right now, by the choices that we make, by the actions that we take, by the conversations that we have. What kind of future do you want to be a part of, and what role will you play in creating it?
Those are important questions to think about. And hopefully, this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some tools to help you navigate this complex landscape.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep engaging, because the future depends on it. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
It's amazing, isn't it? We've talked about so much already, and yet I still feel like we're just scratching the surface of all of this.
I know, right? It's like we've opened this Pandora's box, and there's just so much to unpack, and that's what makes this election so fascinating, so significant. Yeah, it's not just about who won or lost. It's about what it tells us about America, about where we are as a nation, about the challenges we face, the hopes we hold on to, and yeah, the anxieties that we're grappling with.
And the emotions, right? I mean, think about those images of Trump supporters celebrating at Mar-a-Lago. The pure joy, the relief. It's palpable. And then you contrast that with the fear, the uncertainty that we're hearing from other folks. It's almost like we're living in two completely different realities. Yeah, and it's a powerful reminder that America is not a monolith. We're a nation of diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, and this election has brought those differences into sharp focus.
It makes me realize that there's no single narrative that can capture the full complexity of this moment.
Yeah.
We have to look at it from all angles. We have to consider all the different viewpoints. We have to try to understand those underlying currents that are shaping our political landscape. And that's what we've tried to do in this deep dive, right? To explore those different layers, to peel back the surface and really dig into what's going on.
We've looked at the election results. We've analyzed the policy implications. We've examined the human impact. But now it's your turn. It's your turn to take all of this information and process it, to make sense of it for yourself. What resonates with you? What questions are you left with?
Because ultimately this isn't just about Trump or Biden. It's about the future of America. It's about the kind of country we want to live in, the values we want to uphold, the challenges we're willing to face together.
And those are questions that each of us has to grapple with
Yeah.
individually. There's no easy answer, no one size fits all solution. And I think that's the beauty of democracy. We get to engage in these debates, we have these difficult conversations, and we work together to shape our collective destiny.
That's a really powerful thought, and I think the perfect note to end on. This deep dive. It's been a journey of discovery, and I hope it sparked some new thoughts, some new questions for you. And remember, staying informed. That's just the first step. The next step is engaging in your community, sharing your perspective, and working together to create the kind of future you want to see. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.